G'day everyone, welcome back to another live hangout here at Voice Essentials. Another one, they just keep coming around every week, don't they? Which is great. Today we are going to be looking at a mini topic, and we're going to be talking about how to develop and craft your own unique vocal signature. It is so important as a contemporary vocalist. Unless you're a tribute singer, that is, you're wanting to directly emulate another voice, it's so important that you develop your own unique sound. We're going to talk to that today. I've got a number of points that we're going to go through, and then after that we're going to talk to your questions. And I can see that Sebastian already has a question for me, and so make sure, Sebastian, you throw your question into the chat, and when you write your question in, Linda, the magnificent Linda, takes down your question. She puts it into a document for me which I can read, and we will answer that question later. And we almost certainly, I've been pretty good this year with the mini topics. I've set myself a goal of getting through the mini topics quicker, so that they're not 40-minute webinars, but they're more like 15 to 20 minute, mini topics. And so that's what I'm going to aim for that today again. Hey, just very quickly, a special shout out to all of you watching the show as a replay. It's good to have you here as well. And so many of you watch this show as a replay, because we go live at 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time every Monday here in Brisbane, Australia. But of course, for some of you, actually for most of you, that's right smack bang in the middle of the point at which you're pushing out some Z's. You're asleep. And so it's always good to know that you're able to catch the live hangout later. Next week, we are going to be having my very, very good friend, Sharon Tree. When I say she's my very, very good friend, pretty much everyone that comes on as a special guest here to the channel is a friend, and some of them have become friends because of the channel. But just like you. Sharon and I have known each other for many decades, and she is actually a dear friend, personally as well as professionally. She will be joining us next week, and we're going to be talking about myths. The myths around singing. There are so many. There are so many myths. And so if you want to bust some myths around singing, around learning to sing, around voice, join us next week, because Sharon has been running a really great little sort of series of memes on Facebook about myths and vocal myths. And so we're gonna talk to those. And we bust myths here on the channel, not just with our own opinions, right? No, we bust myths based on research, study, and very well-grounded understanding about the way the human voice works. There are still a lot of things that we don't know, and so that has to be acknowledged. And whenever I don't know, I acknowledge it. But equally, there are a whole heap of wives' tales and myths that have just been completely debunked, through good, robust academic research. And so we're going to touch on a few of those next week with Sharon, and that'll be a lot of fun. I've just looked over at the comments, which I'm looking at them there, but of course they're just here. And wow, there's quite a few of you that have jumped in to say good day. It is so good to have you all jumping in and joining in the conversation. Let's get straight to our mini topic today. And to do that, I've got to do this. So let's do it. So we're going to talk about crafting your signature sound. Do you like the little signature down the... Anyway, the fountain pen doing the signature. See how I got there? I couldn't think of a good little symbol. and that's what I came up with. Anyway, this topic is so important for us as developing singers, and it's kind of born out of this idea of knowing your voice, and even though that's a part of this discussion, it's not really what we're going to angle towards today. This is kind of the next step, if you will. So you've developed a sense of knowing your voice, and that is you've been spending time in developing your technique and really, you've kind of become acquainted with your own vocal sound. So now it's about really refining that signature. I still remember when I was a teenager, which was many decades ago, and I think we all did this. You can leave your comments in the live chat. Let me know if you did this. I still remember sort of learning to craft my own written signature, and I would sit there. Probably during math class, I must admit, I probably did more practice of my signature than my algebra, and crafting, like a really nice running style and working with different feels and really developing a signature. Because I come from the days when, do you know checks? I think in the US you still have checks. Here in Australia, checks, where you write out a check to a friend for payment or to give them a gift. Checks in Australia are being phased out, but in the US, I believe they're still pretty actively used, and so you had to sign, right? And so we often used our signature to be identifiable, and it's that idea that we want to really drill down into. What makes your voice unique? What's identifiable? What is your unique vocal signature? And so there's a few points that we want to go through. There's 5 points, so you can count them. Why did I put up it's 4 fingers, but it's actually 5. There are 5 points that we're going to go through in regardings to crafting your vocal signature. The first one, and this might come as a surprise, but I actually think, and you let me know what you think, I actually think this is such a key point, and that is embrace your vocal imperfections. And you might go, but don't we spend all of our time working on technique to perfect the voice, to remove those imperfections? I think technique does refine the voice, but technique's about developing efficiency, sustainability, and ease. It's not necessarily about making it perfect. And in contemporary singing, actually, if we build technique to the point of perfection, it's almost like it sterilizes the voice, like it kind of makes it a bit vanilla. And so we want to really embrace and when I was embrace our imperfections, and when I was thinking about this point, I don't know if any of you have ever seen the movie Wreck-It Ralph. It's a great animated movie, and there's the main character Ralph. He's a big beefy guy, and then there's a character he meets sort of not too late into the movie, but she becomes the main female character. Her name is Vanellope von Sweets, I think. Vanellope von Sweets. And anyway, through the course of the movie, actually, this is a spoiler. I should be very careful here. If you haven't watched the movie and you intend on, it's a very old movie now, but if you intend on watching the movie, you might want to just mute for a second, because I'm about to do the big main spoiler. She glitches as a part of the movie, as a part of her character, as her animation. She's a game character, and she glitches constantly. And what they discover, and her, as a part of the movie, Vanellope has constantly been bullied because of this glitching. But what happens is, in the course of the movie, is they discover actually this was her greatest strength, the fact that she glitches, and she was able to use it as a really powerful device and tool, and things happen in the movie, and she uses that glitching to be helpful. And it's a bit the same with our voice. I think we spend, as singers, we can sort of identify difficulties within our voice, and we become fixated on them and see them as real weaknesses, where in fact those very same weaknesses may well be able to be identified as unique characteristics that can in turn be a strength. You know, good examples of these unique vocal qualities would be a Bob Dylan, Janis Joplin, Louis Armstrong with that gravelled sound. Now, these voices, you wouldn't necessarily walk out and suggest they, you know, go and enroll and audition for being in a Stedford, you know, with the idea of competing on a vocal standard. And yet, you would be hard-pressed to find people who would suggest they were anything but excellent singers. So I think you can kind of get where I'm coming from here, is it's this idea of not allowing what you may right now see as a weakness to be an excuse not to proceed with the voice. See that imperfection as something that's really positive, perhaps. The next thing that we want to talk about is thinking about hybrid vocal techniques. And so what do I mean by that? Well, I'm thinking of things like mixing genres and the necessary, so now we're talking about how do we develop and craft our signature sound. I'm thinking about how do we go about creating something in one sense that's new? Well, you know, everything that was old is new again. And so there's nothing new under the sun. So we might like to think of, maybe you have quite a twangy voice. Hands up, we all know that I've got a twangy voice. So maybe I can take that country twang, which again, once upon a time I was bullied for. Maybe that can be really positive, and I can apply that into some rock and create a really different sound. And that could be an example. Or maybe you're really into R&B riffs and runs. Maybe you could take that R&B riff and run and place it into pop. And with both of those examples, I don't think we're creating anything new. These are pretty stock standards. We hear these all the time, right? But it's this idea of, okay, well, what are you going to be known for? Where do your strengths lie? Combine them and see what your voice does with those. Allow your voice to explore these ideas. Experiment. You might even think to experiment in genres that sit, you know, aside from what you would normally sing, but take the values, the tonal qualities of what you normally sing, take those into the genres that stand aside and see what you come up. It's a bit like mixing different flavors of, you know, soda streams and discovering the different, you know, Slurpee flavors. Here in Australia, we have a company called 7-Eleven, and they have a product called Slurpees. And they always have different flavors. It's been years since I've had a Slurpee. And they're a frozen, so frozen Coke is one example of the Slurpee. But they have other grape and bubble gum and Fanta and you know, kids of a certain age will often want to, you know, get a bit of this flavor and a bit of that flavor and kind of create their own, you know, brain freeze phenomenon. So it's the same idea, coming from the same point. Storytelling with your voice. And perhaps this is an area that you are really strong in, but it's not an area that you've really allowed yourself to express on stage. Perhaps you love the storytelling nature of singing. You hear it in other singers. Maybe this is an area of strength for you. It's an area that you can explore and develop. One of the ways for you to really shape and develop that idea of storytelling is to actually talk through the lyric of your song. Talk it like you were talking a poem, a prose, and actually just talk it through. Allow the lyric to sing as opposed to you singing. This is just a start. Just talk through the lyric. Allow the subtext to emerge. What is it that is not written on the page that as you talk it through, that, when we just talk it through, the melody's not getting in the way, the orchestration, the arrangement's not getting in the way, we're just talking the story. And then allow that to emerge. And then when you come back to singing it, you might be surprised at how effective that is for you in developing that idea of storytelling. The other things that you can explore too in this area of storytelling is dynamics. Where do you need to be quiet? Where do you need to be loud? We want to think about tempo. Rearranging a song to either be fast or slow can radically change the telling of a story. And also phrasing, whether you hold the phrase long, whether you go, short and clipped on your phrasing, all of these things have an effect on your ability to storytell. And there are so many singers that are really known for their storytelling as a singer. And you may well be a person that can really exercise that muscle as well. So I want to encourage you to give that some thought. Again, this is all around the topic of crafting your signature sound. What is your special proposition as a singer? What allows people to identify you and connect with you specifically as opposed to someone else? Not because we're in competition to everyone else, but because we want to make sure that we are developing our voice in such a way that we are able to communicate. And the more people that are ready to receive that communication, the better, arguably. Customized vocal arrangements. I think this is something that can be a bit of a challenge, but particularly if you are not a skilled instrumentalist. That is, you don't perhaps play guitar or piano, and because to really rearrange a piece, you kind of do need to be able to play with it musically, not just vocally. That being said, you can collaborate with another musician. Perhaps you have a family member or a friend who plays an instrument. Often, and I am thinking more about the two instruments of piano and guitar. Often people who play those instruments really enjoy connecting with someone who predominantly uses their voice to express themselves. And so finding those people can be a real joy for both of you, because you both get to, explore the wonders of that collaboration. And when you do, you can explore things like these customized vocal arrangements. And as a result, you can alter songs to fit your style, and find out, what is it that I may perhaps you've found an R&B song, but you want to do it as an indie folk. That could be a really interesting rearrangement of that particular piece. And unlike what we talked about before with the hybrid vocal techniques, you might not take any of the R&B values of that R&B song into an indie folk rearrangement. It might be purely indie folk in its expression, arrangement, everything about it. And so you can find some really fun, interesting ideas that again, you could become known for that person. Oh, that's that singer. You're that singer who, you know, rearranges everything. That could be a lot of fun. The other thing you can be doing too is using things like looping pedals. And now we're getting, again, we're sort of back to the idea of being able to play. And looping pedals is not something I've ever explored. Funny story, in the last 2 weeks, I've really been swallowed by a rabbit hole online. I'm about to build a pedal board for my 2 acoustic guitars. And oh wow, there is so much to it. And I'm really enjoying the learning curve of understanding how to construct a really cool pedal board. One of the things at this point in time that I won't be putting on my pedal board is a loop pedal, because that's not what I'm about. But that may be something that you're into, and so you can look at things like TC Helicon's voice machines, and there's a whole range of looping pedals that you can put onto a mic, and they can be a lot of fun. And as well as you could look at things like software and doing different things with music software around the customized vocal arrangements. And you could even, if recording vocals is your thing, then you can, you know, triple track things, and you can cut and paste, and there's all sorts of things that you can be doing to craft, again, to craft your unique, your signature sound. And then finally, technological innovations and effects. And so this is where we really choose to see tech as a tool, not as a cheat, not as a crutch, but as a tool that we use to craft with, that we use to experiment with, that we use to create with. And it's so, there is, if you want something to really swallow a lot of time online, do yourself, I don't know, do I say do yourself a favor and just start looking into plugins and tech around voice. It's a wild world out there. The amount of things that you can find yourself swallowed up in. You know, using tech, things like auto-tune. Let's just talk to auto-tune. It's not purely for correction, and I've got a whole video on the subject of auto-tune. Auto-tune can be and has been used in the commercial setting as a very powerful creative tool. And so same thing with vocoders, and this is where we get into things like effects pedals, and you know, you can place distortion on the voice if you want to, and that can be an interesting thing if you're into, you know, the heavier genres. You can choose to distort your voice electronically as opposed to doing it, you know, biologically. And that can be something that could be really interesting for you to explore. All of these things, embracing your vocal imperfections, hybrid vocal techniques, storytelling with your voice, customized vocal arrangements, technological innovations and effects, these are all ideas to kind of prime your pump towards the idea of crafting that unique individual sound that sets you apart, not because we want everyone else to be, you know, not set apart, but really identifies you as unique. It's your unique offering, and it's also just fun to explore, you know, to see what is my voice capable of. And you never know where that exploration might take you. It can take you some really fun, different places. Well, there you go, folks. I hope that was interesting. How did I go for time? I think we cracked on. Let's hope so. There's been some good questions going on here. Let me jump over here and see what questions we've got here. We've got some good questions coming up. Let's see if I can find, there's a question here, Mackenzie Kate. Oh, it's funny. Mackenzie, I don't know if do you remember last week I made a comment about the fact that what was unusual were you weren't the first question last week? Guess what you are this week? You're the first question. Okay. I'm going to see if I can find the right question from Mackenzie, because I've got to put it up on screen. We want me to put there's so many questions here today. Wowzers. Here we go. I found it, everyone. Found it. Okay. Mackenzie. How to improve vocal cord closure on low notes for a clearer sound? What a fascinating question, Mackenzie. And a good one too, might I add. I think a good way to approach this. So vocal fold closure is brought about by a strong level. When I say strong, a strong balanced closure of the vocal folds. And this is where we've got the arytenoids drawing the vocal folds together for a clear, clean adduction. For that to happen, there's a few muscular things going on, but part of that picture is going to be a good strengthening of the cricoarytenoid, the CA muscle. It's a muscle that, so we have a transverse cricoarytenoid muscle, and these are muscles that we're not typically given to mentioning, though actually when we think about the lengtheners, remember we've talked about cricothyroid muscles, the muscles that are dominant in the lengthening of the vocal folds, but they also do that in team with the CT muscles, the cricothyroid muscles. And so we want those muscles to be well worked. The other thing that is going to benefit actually with a strengthening of the closure of the vocal folds is twang, because when we have the good shaping of the aryepiglottic sphincter, that helps to draw the arytenoids together, and so we get an encouragement and exercising, if you will, of that closure. There are some other really interesting activities called vocal function exercises by Stemple, who is a well-known, I think Stemple's a speech pathologist / is he an ear, nose and throat doctor? Anyway, he's very well known, and he created these activities called vocal function exercises, and they are also designed to encourage full closure. But what we're always looking for with any activity that we're using to cause a strengthening of that closure at any different point in the voice, whether it be low, mid or high, is it needs to happen with good balance, because the great temptation is, because if you push more air through your vocal through your larynx, you are likely to get more closure because your vocal folds will brace down, the whole larynx will go into a valve function, and you'll get better closure. Actually, it won't be better closure, it will just be pressed closure, and that won't in turn be balanced. And so we have to really find that really sweet spot in the activities that we do to ensure that we don't create one problem while we're trying to solve another. So just be mindful of that, Mackenzie, as you do that work. Manjo, if I can find Manjo's question here. Not Manjo, not Manoj. Manoj, is it? I hope so. I think it's Manoj. Let me come here and see. Oh, we've got a question here about yodeling. So hopefully, see that, so it's doing that thing again. Remember I talked about I've got to come back here and make sure that we get rid of that. I don't want that because I don't know why it does that. So we want this question. How to sing. Now it says here yodeling, but I believe we've clarified that later in the chat, and it's actually yodeling. How to sing yodeling. Yodeling manage is simply a very quick, very skillful movement, a register shift. And so the voice is very skillfully, very quickly oscillating, if you will, between the balance of those musculatures that I was just talking about, between the CT dominant and the TA dominant, and they've got this movement. What is also happening in there is some resonance changes, and the yodeler is managing that, both of those aspects, resonance, the acoustics, and the musculature in such a way to get that movement happening. So hopefully that's helpful. Sebastian has asked this question: how do you keep the resonance sound? You can answer this later, but I need advice on how to be more resonance with my sound. Well, Sebastian, the challenge of the catch-all term resonance is that it's catch-all. That's probably the biggest challenge facing us with that term. And what I'm getting at there is resonance can be all sorts of different things. Let's use a synonymous term for resonance. Let's use the word color. And so if we were to rewrite your question, how do you keep the color of the sound? You can answer this later, but I need advice on how to be more colorful with my sound. Well, then the question then gets asked, what color? More black, more red, more pink, more yellow? What color are we talking about here? And so it really does need to come back to you to qualify what color are we talking about, because there are different ways to achieve different colors. If we want a bright, edgy sound, then twang is going to be a good option. We just mentioned twang. If a bolder, bigger, fuller sound is needed, then belt is going to be a resonance strategy that we can go looking for. If we're wanting a very pastel, very muted color, then perhaps going to a breathy overtone can be a good way of going about it. You can see different colors, different resonance is going to be acquired via different activities, different functional balances of the voice. So that's where we have to be, we've got to be careful in sort of understanding, well, what are we looking for there? Sebastian, you've gone on to ask another question a little bit later, if I can find it. Coming up. Just type it in, Daniel. Just type it in. You've written here, it's actually about storytelling. How do you recommend how to approach telling the story with a piece? Like, what advice can you offer for telling the story of a song? Well, it is in part coming back to what I was just talking about. The important thing about telling a story is you must really understand the narrative. What is the context? What is the subtext? And one way you can go about is maybe identify what is the key word, or a limited number, 2 or 3 key words that describe the lyric. What is the lyric trying to say? From there, you can take those key words and attach emotions to those. Well, what is the overarching emotion that is being communicated as a part of this song? What is this lyric trying to say? It always comes back to the lyric. If it didn't, then it would be more than acceptable for us to just create nonsensical sound. And that actually has its place. We've only got to think of groups like Cirque du Soleil, who actually, the music, in order for it to be universally understood, often the music is being sung with a nonsensical lyric. And so it certainly has its place, because the narrative is being displayed on the stage by the acrobats and the people doing the very amazing things with their bodies and their juggling or all that sort of stuff. And so the music is simply creating an emotional framework for that. So back to what we're usually doing, you and I, where we are using lyric, it's so important that you really come back to that as a key point and look at that. So often as singers, we just dive straight into singing the song. And even though we might learn the melody and we might learn the words, what we haven't done is learnt the lyric, learnt the narrative. And it actually can be a really interesting thing for you to do. Let me give you a piece of homework, Sebastian. Go to your favorites, a song that you're working on right now. And as an activity, do this. Just stop and just read the lyric. What I've noticed with students who I've got them to do this, it can be a bit of an epiphany to go, oh, that's right, it's saying that. And that can actually have profound implications for how you choose to sing it. I have had the odd occasion, this has happened, where the student's gone, oh, I can't sing that. I don't want to be heard mouthing, giving rise to those lyrics. That no, I'm sorry, I can't. We have to find a different song. That's the exception to the rule, but that has happened, and it's all because we were caused to stop and actually consider what the lyric is saying. Prior to that point, they'd learnt the melody, they'd learnt the words, but it was all just very automated, robotic, that there it is. And so, Sebastian, and for everyone else watching, my encouragement to you, go back, investigate the lyric of what you are saying. Firstly, can you, in all good consciousness, sing those words? Most of the time you'll be able to. And then, okay, well, what is that lyric saying? Identify some key words, attach emotions to those. Does it have a journey? Is there sometimes, even within a 3-minute song, we have a variety, a movement of emotion from destitute to hopeful, or from excited to tired. Like, it can be any range of things. And then allow all of those things to, impress themselves upon the way you choose to sing the tune. Sebastian, I hope that is helpful to you, and you're able to give that some thought, and come back and let us know how your homework goes. Hopefully that'll prove to be some good fun. Okay, what have we got here? We've got this one. There we go. I hope you've enjoyed today's crafting your signature sound mini topic. I really do want to encourage you. Can you hear a big part of it is just choosing to give yourself the freedom to step outside the box often the box that you've created for yourself. And to see that there are no, in one sense, there's no rules. There's nothing that says you can or can't do this thing. A student of mine just recently was telling me that they had someone tell them that they shouldn't sing that song they just heard them sing. And my response to them was, why not? I said, do you enjoy singing that song? And she said, well, I don't not enjoy it. And I think because, suddenly they've been told they shouldn't sing it, they were questioning themselves. And I said, look, no one else, regardless of who they are, has the right to tell you that you're not allowed to sing something. There are parameters of that. I mean, if you're working with a teacher and they're really wanting to refine certain aspects of your song, they might place limitations on you for a period of time. But I think you understand the context with which we're talking here, where there's no rights or wrongs. There's no songs that you shouldn't play with. Now, I'm talking about in the privacy of your own practice space. When we then come to talking about, okay, now I'm going to put this all on a stage and I'm going to present this for the public, we start to filter what we decide to do, and there will be songs. I know there are songs that I don't choose to sing publicly. Why? Because it's just not a good fit for me. It might be because I don't connect with the song. It might be because it just doesn't sit really, really well for me. I don't feel comfortable with it. But that doesn't mean I'm not allowed to sing it. And so now that I've got to the end of saying all that, I have no idea why I said that. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. Next week we've got Sharon joining us. I am so looking. I haven't had a good chat with Sharon for a little while, so you get to see us, reconnect and have a really good chin wag about the myths, and we're going to debunk a whole heap of them, which will be good fun. So make sure you hit the like button. If you haven't already, hit the like button. Jump in, hit it, bang, hit the like button. That's not what's going to give you a reminder. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the white bell icon, and that way you'll get the reminder that we're going live next week, Monday, 1 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. I will just tell you before we close off, in 2 weeks' time, believe it or not, it's Easter Monday. And some of you don't celebrate Easter. I do. And here in Australia, it's a public holiday regardless. So we won't be meeting in 2 weeks' time, just so that you know. You can schedule that away and have the night off. But we'll certainly see each other next week, and then we'll take the week off, and then we'll be back after that. I very much look forward to seeing you again in the next Voice Essentials live hangout next week. I'm Dr. Dan. Sing well.